afternoon. A special welcome to some people who'll be joining in the room. I'll be introducing you to those later on, and also a big thank you to those of you who are logging in via Facebook. If you are logging in via Facebook, please do let us know. Let us know you're there. Let us know where you're logging in from. It'll be great to get a good idea of who's out there. And also do please like and share and like and share your comments as well throughout the session. Hopefully that will then encourage more people to come into the session, broaden the amount of ideas that we get to share today. Well, as I say, my name's Graham Mitchell. I'm a business psychologist. I work for an organisation called T2I. And what I want to do over the next 20-30 minutes or so, and then take some questions after, is just look at well-being and motivation during lockdown, and whether we feel that our people are getting what I call their 5 a day. And I'll explain a little bit more about what I mean by 5 a day in just a minute. Oh, I've already got a couple of people. Thank you, Gemma, for letting me know that you're out there. Thank you, Christian, as well. As I say, I'll explain a little bit more about what I mean by 5 a day in just a second. But I thought it might be quite useful to start with, just to explain a little bit about what we hope to get out of today's session. It's the first time that we're using this kind of platform, so hopefully one of the things that we're getting out of today's session is that I'm coming to you loud and clear. So do let us know if we're coming through and that you're out there. It'll be great to interact with you because that's our second hope, really. One of the reasons that we chose this platform is it allows us to interact with our audience. And when I run these sessions, I'm always just as keen to hear your ideas as I am to share mine. So much of what I really like about psychology is the fact that so much of it is intuitive and instinctive, and so there's no reason I should have all the really good ideas. I'm always keen to hear what where you've come through as well. So please post your comments, please post your questions, please post your ideas, and we'll hopefully deal with those as we get around. So what I'm going to do for my part, I'm going to try and get you as involved as I can do throughout the session, so that we're really broadening the pool of people we get involved and the ideas that we draw on. And hopefully by doing so, we'll be able to take away some real nuggets from today's session that help us navigate the weeks and months ahead as best as possible. And it's that pulling together that was really at the heart of IsoNation starting up in the first place. So it'd be great if today's session backs that up. Starting as we mean to go on, as I promised, I'm going to explain a little bit more about my background and why 5 a day. But whilst I'm doing that, I just want to set you thinking on something, if I can do. And what I do is I want to play a game of lockdown, spot the difference. So I want you to think back, if you can do, to a time before lockdown. Could be just January, could be back into 2019, could be further. And then I want you to compare how work was then with what it's like now, what it's been like post-lockdown. And I want you to start to think about what the real differences are. In terms of how you experience work, in terms of office life, you're interacting with colleagues, what are the real differences there? So when you do that, try and think of one thing that fits into one of two categories. Try and think of something that you really like about the change. There's been a real positive, actually, since we've gone into lockdown, something that you're really valuing that maybe wasn't there before. But also think maybe something that you're missing, maybe something that's a change for the worse in a way. And I'll explain a little bit what they are, why we're using those in just a second. But when you're starting to think about them, just post your comments in. So, hi to Tanya, Catherine and James. I understand that you've joined us as well, which is great. Thanks ever so much. As I say, like and share the session, and hopefully we'll get more of a group coming in. But as I say, whilst I explain a little bit more about what today's all about, just think about the differences between what life was like beforehand, what working life's like now, what we're really valuing that's maybe come through since we went into lockdown, but also the things that we miss as well, okay? So what's today's session all about? Well, as a business psychologist, you do quite often get asked exactly what that means that you do day to day. And in a nutshell, really, what I'm doing is I'm using psychology to help my clients perform better. And better can mean the kind of commercial bottom lines, the sort of metrics that we all work to. But better also can be the behaviors and the values that their organizations want to sort of live and breathe day to day. And it can be engaging with the organization as a whole, or it can mean just looking at specific teams or looking at individuals and working with them. But overall, what I'm doing is I'm using psychology to help them either achieve objectives or overcome challenges. And on the topic of challenges, I think we'd all probably say, oh, some other people joining. So thank you for those who are coming in. I think we've got Sarah in there as well. A couple of people liking this session, which is great and fantastic. Hopefully we'll get some more comments coming through. So as I say, it's a challenging time right now. And I think we're seeing those challenges on a number of fronts. So we're probably just about now starting to get through to looking at what our clients are doing and how we can engage with them. But what it was before that was really a session where we're looking at how we continue to do what we're doing, and more importantly, how we can really continue to do it safely and make sure that what we're doing is good for our people and all the concerns that they've got. And it's also, complying with what we're being asked to do as a kind of wider population as well. And for many of us, the very, very quick answer to that was to get our people working from home, so to get them working remotely and get them set up that way. And what that saw over a couple of days was firstly a kind of big rushing away to make sure that the IT all worked, get everybody online and logging in, sort of able to do what they do. And then this kind of mass of online meetings. I wish I'd known it was going to take place. I'd have bought shares in Teams and I bought shares in Zoom and just make sure everybody's okay. And there was sort of lots of great ideas around how people did that. But that was a few weeks ago now. And now I think we get into a stage where we're probably looking at having to maintain all that for a few weeks at least, and maybe a little bit more. So it's really important as we sort of shift from what was a bit of a novelty a few weeks ago and getting used to the new working systems, that it becomes a normality. And as we're doing that, we're really starting to think about, with these new rhythms, with these new routines, let's start to think about, are we setting ourselves up so that we're maintaining the motivation of our people and the well-being of our people, and what we're setting up is something that we can sustain as we get through lockdown and beyond, and however much that's going to be. So that's what we're going to look at today. How does this all start to tie in with what I asked you to look at before? Well, just starting to get some points coming through. What do people think about the differences they've noticed? And maybe this is a good time to introduce you to one of the people we've got in the room with me. So going out to the guys in the room, to sort of David and Toby and Sarah. I don't know if any of you have noticed any differences between working practices before we went into lockdown and how they are now, and what you valued or maybe what you're missing.
I think for me, what I really value is the headspace, the perspective. Just not being in business as usual means you can tackle many of those things that you've been thinking about. Miss obviously the cohesiveness of the team, the ability to unpick problems together as easy while we have the tools in the business to be able to communicate frequently. It just doesn't have the same feel for me.
Okay. So we have, on the positive, it gives us a bit more headspace. Anybody else in the room got anything that they thought of, whether it's a positive or maybe something that they're missing? One of the negatives coming through, I think, really expected this one quickly on, was obviously the social interaction and the colleagues that we kind of know and enjoy working with as well, and we're really missing that. And the team dynamic, I think, shortlisted, you're saying team dynamic is something that you're really missing as well. And anything else from the guys in the room?
I think just following on from David's point, it feels, the workload this currently feels a lot more robotic. So like David said, you'd go through things and motions that you wouldn't normally do because it's sort of black and white in front of you. You can tick it off as an exercise. And yeah, the social interaction is a key one, where you're not necessarily getting the wider picture of what's going on within your business or within the team. And you become more and more siloed as the weeks go on, doing those tick box exercises more to the point of sort of the social interaction, understanding your customers' needs, your team needs as much as you would normally. So it's definitely positive and negative for me.
Okay. Well, it's interesting, other people coming through as well as interaction with colleagues in the working side. I've seen some of the comments. People are talking about some of the wider strategic stuff. They're talking about lack of knowledge and not being able to keep their ear to the ground on things. So that's quite interesting as well. I don't know if there's any other comments from in the room, or that sort of covers what we need to look at for now. Okay. Well, that's good. Well, why did I get you to do that, and what does it show us, and how does it all relate into these kind of 5 a day? Well, the reason I get to do that, and the reason we get these comments coming through on sort of what people miss or what they value, is it all shows that we experience work that little bit differently. There are lots of kind of common factors coming through, but we all experience it differently. And if we look either at what we're really valuing having right now or what we miss, it all shows that we sort of value different things, and we value those things to different levels, and we all find certain aspects of what we do rewarding, liking to keep our ear to the ground, interacting with our colleagues, having some structure, having some headspace. We all find different things of life or working life rewarding, and these rewards are really important, because obviously, yes, working life, a bit of it is about pay and rations, and that's really important. And my hope is that everybody at the moment has got themselves in a good space there, either through kind of being able to continue trading or with the various measures that have been put in place. But work life is rewarding in so many other ways, and it's really, really important that we focus on those kind of non-financial rewards as well, because it's those non-financial rewards like social interaction and like structure that really feed our personal well-being, and they really feed our motivation, and they almost repay our effort in a way for going to work. So the investment that we work in, going in and doing what we do and achieving what we want to achieve, that's the payback we get in a way, and it makes us feel rewarded, it keeps us motivated, and it feeds our motivation and well-being. And because it sort of feeds our well-being, psychologists often refer to these as almost our workplace vitamins or our workplace nutrients. They actually feed our well-being. And I've also, it's a really good way of thinking at it, particularly in relation to the vitamin side of things, because the model works quite well. Like vitamins, there's many of these rewards out there, and we'll cover a few today just to give ourselves a bit of structure around how we motivate and keep our well-being going. So there's a lot out there, but we'll cover sort of 5 today. We all probably benefit from having some of them in our diet, but we'll all have our own individual mix in a way that just works well for us and keeps our well-being going and our motivation going. And I think previously, pre-lockdown, we all got it in one place. By being in the office, by interacting with our people, very automatically, we kind of had this big multivitamin in a way that allowed us to just get our well-being and motivation on tap. Whereas now we're having to sort of think to ourselves, well, actually, that's not there anymore, and we're going to need to know what we missed so that we can go out to go out and try and feed this. So somebody else is just commenting in. Linda, hi, how you doing? You're talking about having proper shape to your day and structure as well. So as we go through these, you'll spot some of the ones that I mentioned. You may have others as well, but it's absolutely vital that where we aren't getting these sort of vitamins or nutrients automatically, we're having a little bit of a think about what they are. And actually, as we sort of shift from novelty to normality, how can we get them back into our working day? How can we get them back to our people's working day so that they stay motivated and they stay engaged, and we can sustain that level for as long as lockdown lasts for. So as I go through today, I'm going to mention some of the more obvious ones, but just have a think how you're doing. I'm pretty surprised if most of you think, actually, we're doing okay there. So where you are, post your comments in, like the session, like the comments, and say, let us know your ideas about how you're maintaining it. As I say, psychology is a lot about common sense, so it'd be great to share some ideas, and so that we're all coming away from this as well. And someone else is talking about separation from work from home as well. So again, we're getting back to that structured point. So post your comments, let us know where you're doing well. And also, if you think to yourself, well, maybe that's an area where we could doing a bit better, either come up with some suggestions as to what you might try doing, or ask us some questions as to ideas around how can I improve us on this one. Remember, there are no bad ideas here. So the more comments, the more questions we get coming in, the greater the likelihood that we'll all walk away with those nuggets that are going to really help us engage and motivate our people and make sure that we maintain their well-being. So we're going to look at our 5 a day, and I want to look at the first one, first of all, which is really what do we get from work? So big first vitamin, and the first one is our real sense of purpose. It's a real sense of purpose. So here what I'm really talking about is it's about bringing meaning to the effort that we put in. So actually today is quite a dreary day, but it's the sort of reason for being in a way. It's the reason we get out of bed on those dark and cold days and get into work and contribute. It's our reason for being, and it gives us that sense of purpose and why, the meaning behind why we put that effort in. And it's almost that, I'm needed and I matter. And I think someone was talking before, but at the moment it's, I don't really have that structure. I'm sort of just going in and almost filling time. I don't know quite why I'm doing it. And that's really, really important in a way. It's really important that we have that sense of purpose. We understand why we're putting that effort in, so that we know that I'm needed and I'll be missed. If I don't get up and I don't do my piece, my piece of the jigsaw will be missed. So it's really important that I still continue to make that effort and have that sense of purpose. And this is an obvious one, but it's a really important one, because I'm a very, very big fan of making sure that during this, we don't just survive lockdown, we kind of thrive during it. And sense of purpose is a really important sort of vitamin for allowing us to do that. And for some businesses, it will be quite easy. I think our people will contribute, their contributions will be very similar to what they were pre-lockdown. It really is, apart from the technology, a lot of things are just keeping going as they were. But for others, we're going through a point at this moment in time, and let me know if this is you, but we're going through a point at this moment in time where we're having to sort of make sense of what our business is all about in the new world, and what's it's going to be like, post-COVID in a way. And if you're one of those businesses, my suggestion to you is this: is take it as a real opportunity to re-engage the people in your business. So have a little think about what your mission statement is, what you're all about as an organization. Have a little think about what your values are, the guiding principles that you like to work to day in, day out, and will inform your decision making. And have a think about the vision of your business, where you want to take it at some time, because they're all valid. You just need to think about what they look like right now. So if we've got a mission statement as a business, that's fine. What does that mean? What we're all about as a business? What does it really look like at this moment in time? We've got a couple of others, Jim, Daniel, Julie, thanks ever so much for joining us. I'll sort of recap up various points as well, so hopefully you won't have missed things. We're just talking about sense of purpose and how we need to sort of revisit our mission statement, our values and our vision, what we're all about and what they look like right now, and really get your people engaged in that, because what it will do is it will give them that overall sense of what's the organization trying to do right now, but from an individual point of view, it will give them a sense of purpose around what their contribution is and what's the part I'm going to play in that. And it might be different to what we were doing a few months ago, because we're having to manage some new stuff, but one way or another, they'll know that they're still contributing to their organization, they're still contributing to what you're trying to go on and achieve, and it just gives them that sense of purpose, means that they, each day they're waking up knowing exactly what I need to do and why. Each week they're starting knowing what I need to get done that week and why. So it's not just meaningless effort, there's real value to what they're doing, there's a sense of purpose, and they feel motivated that they're contributing. So that's number one, that vital sort of making sense and giving people that sense of purpose that maybe has just become a bit clouded since we went into lockdown, and when we're working from home it isn't that obvious. But let me know, how are we doing in terms of some of our people, and how we're making sure that we communicate that sense of purpose to them. Any comments or questions at all? Has anybody tried to sort of re-engage any of their people, and anybody found that they've really had to reinvent themselves? Anybody in the room, or has it been very much business as usual?
I think from our perspective, we have had to continually re-engage because motivation levels are down across the board. So, examples of actually having calls with staff and asking about how they're feeling, how is environments impacting them personally and their ability to fulfill their roles. Just showing that you care and are in the same boat as they are has been a tool that we've used to re-engage our staff and work together to get through this period. But yeah, constant re-engagement required, because someone made in the comments earlier about that blur of home and work. There isn't that separation, and I think that can be quite demotivating.
Yeah.
And having to pull people out of that and add some structure are things that we've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to keep engaging the individual, and people want to feel connected. And I don't know if people have heard the story about are we just kind of making walls? Are we building cathedrals? We need to keep reminding them they're not just making walls; they're building cathedrals still. We're going to go on and do things as an organisation, and I think it's really important during this time that we stay ambitious. Yes, we've got to make sure we're looking at what's happening at our feet and doing the day-to-day in a way in terms of problem solving. But let's stay ambitious, because the reason we're looking at what we need to do today is to get back in line with those ambitions at some stage as well. So I think it's really important that we do keep engaging people, so when they're putting that effort in day to day, it's meaningful effort, and they know it one way or another it's still contributing to the bigger picture. So that's the first one. Thanks very much, David, by the way. And that's the first of the sort of 5 vitamins that I wanted to look at it's interesting that one of the things people have mentioned is this blur between the home and work boundaries. And really that brings us on very, very neatly to our second vitamin in a way, which again, it's real common sense. So much of this will be, and it's really obvious ones, but it's that routine and structure. It's that routine and structure that we have every day. And obviously, when we are getting up and traveling a distance to the office, there's a very, very clear physical boundaries between work and home. And again, those aren't there automatically now. And to start to have a think about and just post some comments around how are you organising yourself at this moment in time in terms of organising your time and your routines and structure, and how are you working with your people in terms of organising theirs? Because I think that's it's a really interesting one, because routine and structure, I think, is something that we all experience on an individual level. Some of us will really have enjoyed everything about office life. They like the routine of it being separate from home and getting into work every day. They like the beginning of the day and the end of the day timings. They like the way it's punctuated. They just really enjoy the rhythms of it. So for them at this moment in time, the challenge is probably, how do I repeat that at home? How do I get into that, given what's going on at home and what the home environment is? For others, it may be a question that actually, do you know what? There were times when I felt I was slightly at odds with that. Maybe I work better at certain times, but I need to be in the office at certain times. So it was always a bit of a contrast, and it's a chance, therefore, to think, well, actually, maybe I'll try some new things that work for me, whichever camp you might fit into. And the chances are we probably all sit somewhere between those two extremes. But whatever camp you sit into, the key thing here is to have some form of routine and some form of structure that works for you. And when I say it kind of works for you, it sort of works for you in terms of making sure that you have effective working days and effective working weeks. And that really sort of goes back then to thinking, well, effective is delivering on that purpose. So if I wake up each day thinking I know the contribution I need to make so that I matter and it's meaningful, how am I going to structure my days to do that? And I think it's really important that we work those two things in tandem when we're talking to our people. So we're not just giving them a to-do list of how they're going to contribute. We're actually trying to mold that into a timetable of when they're going to do these things. And whilst that can seem quite a simple and obvious thing to say, it can be a real exercise in just learning as we go, because there's some interesting things that mean that we'll actually end up doing the right things at the right time. So just have a think to yourselves in a way, maybe post some comments on what your thoughts are. But when do you feel your energy levels are at your highest? So that actually you think to yourself, well, if I've got that big task I know is going to take a lot of effort, what's the best time of way what's the best time of day to do that particular exercise? When do you feel that you're most creative? And therefore, for some, it's right at the start of the day when I've got my most energy levels are at their highest. Others, it's later on when maybe I've taken care of all the tasks that I need to, and my mind's a bit clearer, and I've got a bit more headspace in a way, so I can be a bit more creative around problems. So think about that. Later in the week, when's a good time to do those admin tasks that will sort of lead you through those sort of low energy times in a way, because they don't take up much brain space, but actually I need to get them done, and they'll punctuate that time of day. Taking away from the timings, think about the tasks. Think about those really engaging ones that you can quite happily concentrate on very, very easily, and good times for doing those. And think about how long these tasks take, and realistically whether you can set the things aside. And then the key here is to think that when we're in the office environment, we probably got a lot of little interruptions, little breaks in a way that we just didn't even recognize we're having. People pop into our desk and saying hello, phone calls coming in, emails to answer, little breaks from tasks that actually just re-energizes a bit and then allow us to get back on track. Whereas now, obviously, when we tend to find that when we're working from home, we're very task focused. So we just drop into that focus on that. And it can be very difficult then to just go for 2 hours, 3 hours without taking those little breaks. So a lot of routine and structure is as much about when we are working as when we aren't working. And that's little breaks during the day, but also it's when we're going to start. So we leave home and go to work, and it's when we're going to stop. So we leave work and go back to home. But start to post some comments. I've got people talking that, somebody great one, absolutely great one. They're saying that they've now got a home office at the bottom of the garden, so they keep home and work separate, even if it's just in a short way. Thank you, Julie, for that one. It's a great comment. It's a really simple suggestion. It seems a really obvious one, but I've heard people do these things before. The routines of getting ready, it just takes me from a home headspace to a work headspace, and it just makes me think, okay, fine, when I sit back at my desk, now it's time to work. But have a little think about these things. Have a think about when you're at your most productive, when you're at your most creative, and then work with your people to say, okay, fine, not just what tasks do we need to be doing, but when are good times to do them individually, and when we're done to do them sort of collectively, we've got team tasks to do as well. So that what we're doing is creating an effective working day and an effective working week. Any comments from in the room on that? I don't know, Sarah, David, Toby, whether you've got any thoughts on how your structure might have changed or how it's maybe stayed the same.
I found it pretty difficult with no sort of benchmarks or events to work towards. So whether that's a social event on a Wednesday night down the pub, or gym night on a Tuesday, or rugby training on a Thursday, it's very difficult to put off work and say, I've got this evening free, or I haven't got a time limit to achieve that workload. Yeah. So I've got to be really regimented with my diary, to-do lists first thing in the morning, because I do tend to be most active in the afternoon after lunch. And without those events in the evening, whether it's social or sporting or whatever it may be, I can find I may drift into the evening and carry on working. And it may be 12 hours of working on the time, but realistically, it may only be 7-8 hours, and you're just sort of dragging the day out. So I found that particularly difficult without sort of the social interaction or the outside to work with, if that makes sense, in sort of holistic harmony. It's been very difficult to benchmark your time.
Yeah, it is, and funnily enough, a lot of being disciplined about this is some of it will be when we do work, so much of it's when we don't, and actually studies have shown that funnily enough that overwork is as much a problem, because people put in long hours, but how productive are they being? Because we haven't got the prompts, we haven't got people leaving the office, we haven't got things we've got to go up and do that naturally draw us away or tell us it's time to go. So that's not leaving the office. And it's just as much of a challenge as a bit of drop off in productivity, because we're finding it harder to concentrate, and we've got to get the distractions from home out the way. And I think it is really important, and it's at the heart, isn't it? It's, we have to be self-disciplined, because the little natural prompts that are sometimes out there aren't there anymore. And it's just about thinking, okay, well, actually, you talk about to-do lists. I think it's the 7 habits of effective people that say they do a timetable, not a to-do list. So actually say, I'm gonna spend 2 hours in the morning, in an afternoon on that particular topic. Then I'm going to stop and I'm going to go on and do something else. And I think that's is to understand what it is we've got to get done, but then set aside some time to do it, and then recognise that when I stop that's it. I'm going to call that as a working day in a way, because otherwise we do drift, and to whatever degree we can, we don't have the downtime that allows us to recharge the batteries and come back the next day. Afternoons merge into evenings, day one merges into day two, and that's when our well-being starts to drop off a little bit. So
there's no
really self-discipline
button at the moment, is there?
Sorry,
there's almost no reset button at the moment. I think someone mentioned it. Work and home is the same thing at the moment. So there's no reset between the office and coming home and downtime, like you just said, and then starting up again the next day. It's all drifting into one. So it's how you get the mindset to reset your mind to start again that next day.
Yeah, and I think you really have to you really have to almost be that self-disciplined in a way. And if you're working in a particular room, get into the mindset, when I close the door, that's it for that. I'm not going to go back and check an email, and it's a real rhythm to sort of have to get into, and the disciplines have to get into. But I think at the moment when we're doing that, we just got to make sure that we're starting to develop those disciplines in a way. And the more we do it, the more we'll get into the habit, and the more we'll actually find things that fill those gaps in an evening, that hopefully we are then starting to find that there is that draw away from the working day, and we sort of see the contrast between the two. If I can just remind people to sort of share and like this as we go along, and keep posting their comments, because that way we'll get more and more people coming in, and hopefully more and more ideas to share about some of these things. So that was routine and structure. So we're not just looking at the sense of purpose, which is what people need to be doing, so they've got that meaningful contribution each day. We're also looking at a routine and structure, so when we're doing it and when we're doing it at our most productive, so we're being effective. Sort of leading on from that as well is the sort of tasks that we get people doing, because what the next thing for me about the vitamin we miss is what we call contribution and achievements. And this is really about making people feel useful. So have a think about in what way you still are or aren't at this moment in time able to use what you'd class as your go-to skills. So these go-to skills could be technical, they could be sort of the non-technical, you could be a good problem solver, quite creative, or they could just be your characteristics. You are the person who kind of is able to gel the team together, or the person who kind of is able to galvanize effort. Are you still able to be useful in that way? Because it's a huge thing. We all like to feel that we are, on a day-to-day basis, we are using the skills that we have, and we're developing new ones as well, and we're using those skills to achieve tangible outcomes and real results, whether it's helping clients, whether it's helping colleagues, whether it's developing ourselves. We like to feel like we're being useful. And if you want to see a really good example of that, we don't have to look back too far to people wanting to be useful, wanting to contribute. I think it was back at the start of April, the government said, we're going to leave a website open for 4 days. We'd like people to register and say if they'd like to contribute to the national effort. We're hoping to get 250,000 in 4 days. And they got 1 million, I think, within 24 hours. Because at the time, people wanted to be useful. They saw all these things going on, these great things going on, and they wanted to be useful, and they wanted to contribute as well. And it's such a key reward for all of us to sort of get out of our work. So it's really important that when we're looking at what our people need to do, and we're advising them around the sort of structure to their working days and working weeks to do it, we also try and recognize what are the go-to skills that they would use during their working day. And I say some of it's the technical side. There may be certain technical abilities that they really brought to the mix. Can we still draw on those to some degree? Some of them may be more non-technical. They could be a good organization, project management, problem solving. Can we get them involved in those type of projects at this moment in time? Some of them may just be the sort of qualities that they brought to office life. They could be that person who galvanized, quite empathetic with their colleagues, who are very good at sort of just drawing out the quiet ones and understanding what was going on, etc. And they will have valued that. They'll have got a real reward from contributing in that way. So it's really important that as we're starting to look at how our people are working now, we're trying to give them an opportunity to do that as well, so that they're making that contribution by drawing on their key skills. So just wondering to what degree people are maybe missing using what some of they would class as their key skills, or in ways in which they've tried to draw their own people into doing this as well. So any thoughts on that at all? Just looking down, and there's certain people saying that what they're trying to do is get the problem solvers involved in, obviously we've got problem solving at this moment in time. So people say there's some people who kind of naturally like to go and solve these problems, to get them engaged there. But Sarah, how you're cropping up, what's your thoughts on this? Sadly, we can see you, but we can't hear you at the moment. The wonders of technology. Give it a few more seconds, and then we'll see if we can get Sarah back in. Give me a chance to have a drink.
I think from my perspective, in a commercial role, it's not just the social relationships that you need. There is, you draw on the relationships you have with suppliers, with colleagues, with prospects, and that's certainly. The people in my team are most displaced by that lack. The people that are out in meetings, meeting new people, uncovering new problems, as you've highlighted there. There's a lot of people in my business which are problem solvers, and they're probably frustrated with the lack of problems. And my role is to find new problems, as you say, distribute problems for them to contribute to, or redeploy that resource onto staff engagement we touched on earlier, on how to use relational skills to make the people feel part of the team going through this challenge together.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I've talked to one or two people recently where they're in bigger teams where they've had to furlough some staff, and so it's a bit all hands on deck. They're having to cover areas that they used to cover before they got promoted, etc. And they understand it's really, really important to do, but it's not challenging their skills in the way that it would do. And as you say, you've got a lot of your people are used to building relationships and solving problems, and at the moment they feel, that's a skill that I have, and I'm not using it. I'm not using it to contribute. So it's not lack of effort at all, or lack of engagement, or wanting to do this, but it's just that life isn't challenging me. And again, it used to be. God, we probably went to a stage where we think too many problems to solve sometimes, but at the moment, they're not as naturally occurring, or they're not the types that we used to. And if we can spot opportunities to draw on those skills, be they hard or soft skills for our people, and make them feel like they're really using them to contribute and achieve things, it's really useful. And I think on that skills one as well, we have got that time to allow them to develop new ones. And that's again that sense of achievement from thinking, actually, one of the reasons it's good to stay ambitious and know what the vision is you think, well, what sort of business do we want to be when we come out of this? And what skills might we want to try and develop during this time? It means we're going to be better placed to do that. But yeah, I think you're right. It's tricky if the ability or the opportunity to use those skills doesn't crop up. We've just got to do the best we can to try and get them, doing work that allows them to use it when they can.
Absolutely. I think this is, the message to my team is that this opportunity here has never come around in my working career to turn that lens back on us, reflect on what we're doing well and what we could be doing better. And first, that professional development is core to that. So yeah, helping those people reflect on their own performance today and how they can improve and draw on strengths from others in the team is helping us with that.
Yeah, agreed. And wonderfully, in a way that brings me on to the sort of next vitamin that it's really useful for us to do, because you use the phrase turn that lens back on ourselves and look at that recognition. And the next one that I want to really look at, now that we've sort of looked at the sort of sense of purpose and the routine and structure, and that using our skills is all about recognition and feedback, and actually starting to feel like we are making headway, because I think that's quite important, and that you've got people thinking, okay, but how are we doing at this moment in time? And similar to a lot of other things, we used to sort of wander around the office and we'd see a lot of things. People would know how the business was doing. There'd be very visual indicators in terms of, are we hitting our targets? Are we doing well? I can hear what's going on around me. And I think as business leaders, we would be there and have those off the cuff opportunities to say that was great, good call, good meeting, etc. Things are going well, and they're not there as well. And I think people, they want that, they like that feedback, that they're making headway, that their contribution is helping to move things forward, and they like that recognition for a job well done. Not the constant I need to be in the limelight, but they like that recognition for a job well done. And so I think there's a great phrase I heard once, which is, it's really useful at this moment in time, if we're leading businesses, to want to feedback on how we're doing against what we're trying to do right now, but also with your individual people, try and catch people doing something right. So actually, where you're talking to them and saying this, that was a great job, how did you do today? So that actually we're sort of feeding back in there. So as well as the first three, do get on to sort of recognition, feedback, and sort of making sure that we're feeding back to our people about what the business is doing, but we're also feeding back to people about what they're doing. So that's our first four. The fifth one, I think, is something that we've touched on quite a bit so far. So we've looked at sort of recognition, feedback, contribution, but the fifth and final one for me is really that social interaction. The sort of fifth vitamin for me is really sort of social interaction, and it's all about sort of culture and community. So start to tap into me a little bit, ideas around how you're, how it is you're keeping that sense of culture and sense of community going with your organisations, because again, it's so important. And different people will always value it differently. The more outgoing people love that office interaction. They love bouncing off people every day. They get a real buzz from that. It helps them be really effective. They really like the fact that they get to say hello to people in the morning. They know when their day starts. People, you see the natural good evenings at the end of the day to let us know there. The quieter ones, maybe less so. Maybe every now and then they might like that quiet day from home. But pretty much everybody will enjoy the company of their colleagues to a degree, as I say, whether it's because they're very outgoing or even just because it makes them feel part of the team. So I think it's really, really important to look at how how we keep that social interaction and that culture and community going. And yeah, we all went off a heck of a pace with Zoom meetings and and Teams meetings. And I think the real thing here is just to drop back into whatever a balance is for you, and to think about the formal interactions that you had, so the weekly strategy meetings, the daily huddles, the one-to-one catch-ups, but also think about the informal interactions that you had, and it might be just where you said hello to people in the morning, the drinks you might have after work, the kind of catch-up coffees you'd have with colleagues that were, we talk about work a bit, but as much of it was social, because we will all value those. Again, they're really important to us all, and it's really important, therefore, that we think, what were those, and how do we get into a rhythm of making sure that we're replacing those community and cultural pieces, that social interaction, to what we're doing at the moment, because that's hugely valid as well. And I think with all of this, I'd always encourage us to look out for our colleagues, but take the heat off yourself a little bit, because I think that always remember that the outgoing people in the office will be a bit more outgoing on social media. The quiet ones will still be a bit quiet, so don't worry too much if they're on a call but not necessarily contributing. It might be the same as they were, when they were in the office as well. I think it's key we just make sure offline that they're happy with things, but all of it with social interaction is about getting into a balance and a rhythm that works for you, and make sure that you're doing it. And somebody's saying here that they're, just mentioning that it's the light touches in the things that we do throughout the day that we just got a real natural opportunity to do, whether it's saying well done to a colleague or just catching up with a colleague. Those are the things that we miss, and they don't naturally occur. So we almost need to make a conscious effort to do them in a way. So those are the 5. Those are the key 5. And as I say, there'll be other things that people value about work, but the 5 that I just thought of, if we're thinking about how are we making that transition from office life to more remote working, what are the things that we might be missing or that we valued before, and how do we make a transition in a way so that we're getting to a stage where we've got the right sort of diet coming through, where we're maintaining our vitamin and our nutrient level, so that we're feeding our well-being and our motivation, and make sure that we keep people coming back the next day fit and ready to work and be really productive. But those my thoughts on things. Just wonder if anybody's got any comments or questions about how it's working with their organisation, ideas that they've got. Please do sort of post them in again, share and like the session, see if we've got anybody else who wants to sort of contribute at this stage, or if there's anybody in the room at all who came through who might want to ask a few questions.
Yeah, I think that social interaction and culture one's really important. You discussed it there with the teams, but I think also with your customers and your partnerships that you have daily dealings with, because ultimately, as hard and horrible as it sounds, we may go back to different partnerships, we may go back to different customers, because the landscapes can be so different, and all those months or years of learning the culture, building those relationships could all be restarted again. So I think that's a really important point.
I think it's key. Full enough, I was talking to somebody earlier on about some working when you were doing with them, and I'm sure my age, having gone through 2008, and the key thing was everybody again built their way out of it.
Yeah.
And what you tended to find is that as we grew back out of it, everybody was cautious about how much they invested in certain things and what they invested in, but they were also really cautious about who they invested it with.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to really keep doing during this time, and it can seem like a bit of a lost leader, is keep building and maintaining relationships, whether they're internal or external. Really, really, as I say, we've probably gone through a stage as organizations now where we're trying to make sense of everything for ourselves. And I think we're coming out of that now, and we can start to engage with our clients and say, okay, fine, what's this all meant to you, and how can we support you? What do you need from me? And it might be something immediate, or it might be 6 months, 12 months time before it comes back online. I think it's really important to invest in those relationships now and keep building and maintaining them, because they will stand you in good stead moving forward, because the wheel will start to turn again, and it will be, people will pay close attention to who they work with, and it'll be the ones who've maintained those relationships when maybe there wasn't an immediate gain in it, who will get the benefit further down the line.
Definitely.
Any other comments or questions at all? That's something else coming in.
Yeah, just to echo Toby's comments there, that I suppose the initial response to this was there was the activity on LinkedIn of people posting stuff was fascinating to watch. But we maintain the position of trying to help people, and I think you're right. I think there is new relationships to be acquired, and what they turn into, who knows? But the business community has pulled together, and there's been a lot of help, and there's a lot of knowledge transfer, and I think only good things can come from that. Hopefully that continues forwards as well.
Yeah, really good point.
Sorry, Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, one of the things that's come through from a lot of the sort of leaders' insights thing is that actually, in a way, no one's made any mistakes here. So we're not into it for that reason, and we're all kind of facing a really common challenge. And I think that does mean that we all pull together. I think we all pull together now whilst we're navigating our way through it, as we will do when we come out the other side. And everybody, I would pretty much say, in one way, shape, or form, is going to be starting from a slightly lower base. So we've really got a chance to make sure that we kind of work our way out of it together. But I think it will be that sort of engaging in those relationships and building forward will be a key part in doing that. Just checking if we've got any more questions coming through. Anybody out there at all, or if that's just starting to draw us to a close. Just going to see. Okay, so I think we're coming through. Just a couple of people sort of putting in that they, little things around how they're trying to structure their day so they get that. So Mark Luther Thomas, thanks ever so much for that. He's talking about trying to go for a run every morning before he starts work. It helps him just not fall into that trap of rolling out of bed and rolling into the office. And I think that's great. So that, we talked about, I can't remember who it was who mentioned they had the office at the end of the garden, putting a physical barrier in there. Mark, that's an even more physical barrier, but I love that one because I think also it will really start to, kind of get the headspace juices flowing as well in terms of that. Interesting people talking about concentration and just taking themselves away from kind of some of the noisy WhatsApp group. Ross, this is you talking about just making sure that what you're doing is focusing on the messages that are really important to you and reduce the distractions of what might be happening elsewhere as well, so that you're really focusing coming through. And other people talking about capitalizing on things when your energy levels are at their highest. And if you've got those real investment tasks, try and find out when you feel you work best. Do those then. If you've got those really engaging tasks, then obviously when your energy levels are a bit lower, they're great ones to do there. Just checking if there's anything else coming through. I think in a way we're starting to see all the questions coming through. So massive thanks from me to Toby and to David. Big thanks to Sarah as well. Shame we couldn't hear you on that particular question. Thanks also to the people out there who've been posting their comments and contributions all the way through. It's been very, very good to get people's suggestions. For me, it's made it a much more fun session as well. It's always good to hear ideas. If there are further questions that people have got, or you didn't want to post them in this sort of forum and you want to kind of come to me direct, that's absolutely fine. Track me down through the IsoNation site, track me down through LinkedIn, ask me any questions you like, and I'll endeavour to come back to you with an answer. But in the meantime, thanks Toby, thanks David, thanks Sarah, thanks to everybody for logging in. Stay motivated, stay engaged, try and keep your well-being in the right place, but most of all, stay safe, and hopefully we'll be in touch again soon. But thanks very much and goodbye.
Thanks, Graham.
Thanks, Graham.